Today I'm going to make a cover jar with a texture, a roller texture. This texture, the roller and the texture is from MKM. Nice roller, and they got lots of selection too. And to be able to roll the texture deep enough, first I would throw a cylinder and then gonna insert this cardboard inside and then color in so the clay is fitting nicely and tight, so my texture will be very deep enough. So that's the tool you need, texture, roller, and then a cardboard. And I already wrapped with 2 layers of newspaper here, and using the slip to stick together. So that's the cardboard. And you might want to have another tool that to measure the diameter of the cardboard. So when you are throwing the cylinder, you don't need to throw very wide or too narrow that you won't be able to insert. So you can use the caliper to measure approximately the size, and when you throw the cylinder, just throw a gold in it. And again, for throwing a lid part, you need to have a gallery either on the body or on the lid. So you need to have a nice 90 degrees of a rip or something, 90 degrees to push that. Okay, so let's start to throw my first cylinder. And this piece of clay is about maybe 3 pounds. Okay, 3 pounds. It's porcelain. I'm first centering my clay. You can see that when I'm centering, I'm pushing the clay onto my right hand. And my right hand is kind of serves of a very solid wall. So when I'm pushing the clay against my right hand, because my right hand is bracing the arm right there on the splash pan, so the clay has nowhere to go. And while I'm using my right hand, this is what I do. I actually curve my fingers, so not using the center of my palm to do that, using the tip and the palm pressure. So curve my fingers, and actually the right fingertip is very powerful. So I use the right fingertip to move the clay around. Okay, so when I'm pushing it, and my right fingertip is moving up and down to get the clay into the center. Okay, that's the centering technique. And then to open it, usually I'm using my right thumb to do the opening. You can use the both thumb, but don't recommend you hanging your hand there without having the support. So put your hand right here on the surface, on the already center surface, and then so brace your arm here, brace your hands here, and then use the thumb to drill. So do the initial drilling using the thumb, push down and then kind of widen it. So that's the initial opening. And now, this thumb is only this long, and I also don't recommend you use your thumb all the way down, okay? Unless you are controlling the wall, but it's hard to control the wall that way. So after I initial drill my hole, I actually put my hand here on the side and brace it right here on the splash pan. And then move my left hand over here and bracing my left hand on the right, so everything, the hand is connecting together. And while I'm drilling it down, okay, I saw a lot of people try to widen it. You don't want to do that, okay? You want to drill all the way down until you got the right thickness, and then you widen it. If you start to widen it, you're gonna end up with a chunk of clay in the center. So drill it down, and in the meantime, my hand is compressing, controlling the wall. Keep on going until I get to the right thickness, which is around 3/8, between 3/8 of inch to 1/2 of inch. Okay, now I'm taking all the way down, and then the fingertips start to widen at the base. Move the fingertip toward my right hand to make the base white and flat. You can compress a couple times to make the base, to make the bottom stronger. And you can even pour it even wider, making a little indentation on the inside. Because a lot of people tend to not using the clay in the corner, so they are wasting a lot of clay, because that corner you have lots of clay there. So if you are holding the finger and making it wider, indentation, okay, so that's the opening process. And now for the initial lifting. Since my clay isn't that big, if I have a bigger piece of a clay, then I will just hold on here and then use my left hand to lift. But this piece of clay is not very big and thick, so I'm just going to do my initial lifting by using my left hand and grab the clay and then just move up. But by doing so, the hand is loose without stability, okay? So I'm putting my right hand there to support it. So this is connecting together. Okay, connecting together, and initial lifting using my left hand. And slowly but steady raise the wall up. That's my initial lifting. And put the slip back to work, especially on the inside, because you don't want to use, I personally don't like to use the water, because the water is not going to stick on the wall. It's going to create a puddle in the center, in the middle of your clay. So using the slip is better. Okay, just grab the slip from the side on the wheel head, and also remove it from your fingertips, and then just coat it before your next move. Okay, so the lubrication, or I call it slippery, is important when you are trying to lift your clay. Right, slippery. And in the meantime, I want to keep my cylinder narrow, because okay, the size is fine, but I'm going to pour it taller. So by color the clay in, and then squeeze the wall slowly up. Right, slippery again before my next move. Right, And outside it's easy, just touch it up with a little bit of water. Right now I'm going to lift with my thumb meter, so the lifting is like that. Everything is, the elbow is tucked into my body, and then the thumb is attaching to the fingertips. My left fingertips point toward my left and slightly hold it on the wall of the cylinder. Okay, connecting everything together. And slowly but very steady to lift the wall. Slippery again. Okay, so doing my third lifting. Before I do that, slippery. And I can move my clay, squeeze the clay in first. And the bottom is a bit thicker than the top, so I will apply more pressure on the bottom, but less pressure when I move up. Making sure my cylinder isn't too wide, so that's pretty good. Right, slightly lift. I don't want to be too tall either. Still leave a bit of a thickness there, because when you stretch it, the wall will become thinner. So right, so that's about the height I would pull, and to leave some thickness there to for stretching it out. And now wipe up clean up my finger, and then I'm gonna insert the cardboard. Okay, this cardboard I'm already wrapped with the newspaper. And the bottom here is a little bit, you see that there's lots of wrinkle here. And if you put it in, you might mess up the bottom. So you can soften it by dip it in the water a bit. Okay, use water to soften a little bit. Okay, and then just carefully put it inside. Try to put it in the center. Okay. Okay, so carefully do that, and then I'm trying to color in so the glaze fit in tight on the cardboard. And you don't want you don't want to color in on the top first, because when you do that, the air already trapped inside. It's very hard for you to push it very tight. So you want to start from the bottom and slowly, gradually move it up. And you want to use the wider, you don't want to have too much finger mark there, so using the palm to do that. Okay, more of the palm pressure. Slowly to push the there's no rush, so you could do that slowly. Okay, so the wall is fitting nice and tight on the cardboard. And now I'm ready to roll. Before I roll it, there are lots of finger mark there, so I want to make the surface clean so the texture will show nicely. So using my wooden rib to clean up. I don't know if you noticed when I'm using the metal rib, I was bending this way. So using the middle curve so that the bottom of the corner is not dragging lines. Usually people, when they do, the bottom, they have this corner that is dragging lines. So kind of move it away, okay, move it away so I don't have the line. Right, and then I don't want to roll my texture all the way here, so I will probably leave about inch and a half without compressing all the way, because if you do that, sometimes the pressure is not even, so your room will be not even, and it's super hard for you to try to close it later on. So I don't usually roll it all the way to the top. Right, now bring my roller. So make sure it's rolling freely, okay? It doesn't want to be stuck in here. Sometimes this is not quite rolling freely and it's stuck. It's gonna be very hard to pull it out. So make sure it's rolling freely. If not, you can use a sandpaper to just grind it. So this part, the middle part will be shorter, so it will move more freely. And then to prevent the clay from stick on here, because once you roll, the clay tend to stick. So my suggestion is you dip it in water. Okay, water. Okay, dip it in the water, and then you want to hold the cardboard. Okay, hold it to support it, and then you roll. Okay, from the bottom you roll it up, and I would do this angle about maybe 45 degrees, and then when you pull up, you can feel that the pressure more evenly. If you do that, sometimes you are pushing it too hard. Okay, so the texture is not evenly go up. Some part is lighter, some part is too deep. Okay, so like hold your handle here about 45 degrees. Okay. So you wrote about maybe halfway, maybe 2/3. You have to calculate how many more you can do. So that you will be able to distribute your texture more evenly in one full circle. So here maybe 4 more times, so I can calculate like half here, half that. So 4 more times. So then the distance will be a bit smaller for each one. Okay, so you can see that I evenly distribute so that the texture is evenly go around the full circle. Okay, so that's the putting the texture on the cardboard, on the cylinder with the cardboard inside to support it. And now after that, I'm going to just remove. Right? Yeah, a little bit, the surface is a little bit too dry, not smooth surface, so sometimes the friction, so it's hard to pull it out. And also, if you choose the cardboard, make sure that you have both ends that it's going through, because if you have one side sealed, when you try to pull out, it's gonna suck the air. Okay, so it's like a syringe. Okay, so make sure that it's open. And like I told you that I have 2 layers of paper, so I'm going to lift the inner paper first, which should be very easy to pull out. And then finding the inside part of that, and then slowly pull it out from there, and then kind of roll it. Okay, beautiful. The paper is not sticking on the wall, so you have to do it quick though, so the paper doesn't get into too wet, and then it stick onto the wall. Right now, so I'm ready to stretch it, but since the paper is absorbing all the water and the slip, so the wall is kind of dry, so I want to put a little bit of water on the inside of the wall and make sure my hand is clean. And wet without dry clay on it. A little bit of water inside on the wall. Okay, so initially you might want to use the sponge to stretch it. So I'm using the sponge inside, hold it there and stretch it. But later on I will just use my hand, my fingers, because I feel the contact of the finger, I have more feeling of it. But initial shaping, I could use the sponge to do that. And since I already have a texture, so I won't be able to touch the outside. So basically it's just the fingers inside and the sponge inside to make the shape. So I'm going to compress this part first. So I'm taking my time to blow up the volume. And my eyesight is usually looking the curve here. See which curve I need to push out. My eyesight is not here. Okay? It's looking further to see the profile of the shape. Let me slightly close the top. So the base is fine now. I'm gonna stretch more from this point, widen a little bit, so the foam is not so slant, kind of a little bit fatter, okay, a little fatter. Maybe a little tiny little bit more here. So that's how I carefully to grow the foam, taking my time to do that. So that foam, the profile is fine now. The foam is nicely done, and then taking care of that top. Putting my fingers inside to support it while I'm compressing the shoulder. So before I push my gallery, I'm gonna put the gallery here. The rim is not even, so I will cut it even. Okay, and now I'm going to use the wooden rib to press the gallery here. So to do that, 90 degrees, I'm holding my rib this way. Okay, so the 90 degrees will be on here, and then push it down. But while I'm pushing it down, you need to have a support while you push it down. So put my finger there and connect everything together. See that? Bracing all my fingers, my arms. Clean up the rim here using the chamois to smooth it. Yeah, people ask me what is this, the blue thing. Okay, this is the we call chamois, or it's a people use that for washing the car. Okay, it's also called absorber. If you go Amazon or Walmart, they have it absorb okay, absorb water. It's called absorber, and they come with a large sheet of this material, and then I use the scissors to cut a small piece, and this is working very good for smoothing the rim. Okay, making the rim smooth. So that's the body of the cover jar. I'm gonna make some line here. So to draw some uneven line, and then just cut the extra clay off the foot. So that's the body, and actually I forgot to put a bed here, so now it's hard for me to lift. I could lift the whole piece, but I will probably mess up the texture. So I will need to have some heat gun or hair dryer to dry it so that I could remove it. And then I will show you the how to make the lid. Okay, the lid. And for making the lid, you can make a simple lid, but usually I like to put the gallery on both the body and the lid. So for that, it's a little bit more complicated because you need to measure that inner part of that and then the outer part of it. So you have to measure twice to be able to fit your lid in nicely. So I will show you how to do that later on. So I'm using this small piece of clay to make the lid for the body. And I already measured the inner part of the diameter of the body, and then I will do that, and then later on I will measure the outer part, because I have a gallery on the body, and I like to also put a gallery on my lid too. So if you have a gallery on both the body and the lid, it's a little bit complicated to make your lid. Usually you could do only either one of it, not for both of it. So for making the lid, you want to open up a shallow dish. With the outer part a bit thicker, this part here, because you are going to make your gallery right here. So put the finger there to hold it, and then the right finger, index finger to, you can squeeze it a little bit. So it's almost the shape of the gallery. Making sure that the width is okay. It's too wide now. So I'm going to move it in. And also use my thumb to push a nicer curve. There's a curve here that is nice and fitting on the inner part of the lid. Still a bit wide, so to move the clay a bit inside. Okay. And again, I used that 90 degrees on the rib to push it, and put the finger behind it when you are pushing it. Because this is still a little bit wide, so I'm going to push. Okay, so it's about right. Do the final compression. Right now, taking care of the outer part. First, I will draw it out, make it thinner before I cut it to the right size. Then I measure the outer part of the gallery on the body. Okay, a bit wider now. And use my number 10 very pointy knife to cut. And then using the wooden knife to trim. You can trim it later. But I prefer to trim it when it's wet, so I can save the clay. So the inner part of the lid is about here. So from here to the wheel head, I still have about I would say about at least 3/4 of an inch. So I could use that to trim the knob. Okay, so that's the lid. I cut it up and let it sit. Trim it later. Okay, I will show you how I trim it.